Broken Heart, Part 1, When Love Felt Like Home, Strasbourg, France. In a quiet residential neighborhood of Strasbourg, France, where cobblestone streets meet modern apartments and morning fog slowly rises over the rooftops, there stood a small but warm apartment. Inside that apartment lived Ethan Miller and his wife Olivia Carter. Their marriage was arranged by families. There was no long love story before marriage, no dramatic romance. Just two strangers stepping into a shared life. But Ethan made a silent promise to himself from the very beginning. I will love her in a way she never feels alone. Ethan was a man who believed love should be shown, not assumed. He expressed it in small daily actions. Waking up early to prepare breakfast. Making coffee exactly how Olivia liked it. Leaving small notes like, "Take care today," on the kitchen counter. Checking on her during work hours just to ask, "Did you eat?" To Ethan, love was attention, presence, care. But Olivia was different. She was calm, practical, and emotionally reserved. For her, love didn't need constant expression. Too much emotion felt unnecessary, sometimes even uncomfortable. At first, everything seemed normal. New marriage always needs adjustment. Ethan thought time would make things smoother. But Ethan didn't wait for time. He loved immediately, openly, and consistently. One quiet morning in Strasbourg, sunlight was slowly entering through the kitchen window. Ethan was already awake, cooking breakfast. He turned and smiled. "Let me make breakfast for you today." Olivia stood near the dining table, tying her hair, barely looking up. "You don't have to do all this. I can manage myself," she said calmly. Ethan replied softly. "I know you can. I just want to do it." Olivia didn't answer. She simply sat down. That silence was the first small crack in their relationship. Days passed. Ethan continued his routine of love. Messages during work. "Are you okay? Did you eat lunch? Drive safely." At first, Olivia replied normally. Then shorter replies. Then delayed replies. Ethan didn't notice when care slowly started becoming pressure in her eyes. One evening, Ethan came home holding a small bouquet of flowers. His eyes were bright, full of happiness. "These are for you," he said with a soft smile. Olivia looked at the flowers for a moment, then sighed. "Ethan, why do you always do this?" Ethan blinked, still smiling. "Because I love you." But Olivia's expression didn't soften. Instead, she said quietly, "It feels like too much sometimes." That sentence didn't come as anger. It came as exhaustion. And exhaustion hurts more than anger. That night, Ethan stood alone near the window of their Strasbourg apartment. Outside, the city was peaceful, dim street lights, quiet roads, people returning home. Inside, Ethan felt something unfamiliar growing in his chest. Confusion. He asked himself silently, can love be too much for someone? But the room gave no answer. Only silence stayed with him. Ethan Miller could feel it, even if nothing was openly said. The silence between him and Olivia Carter was no longer peaceful. It had become something heavy, like an invisible wall standing between them. Ethan still tried. He still woke up early. Still made coffee the way Olivia liked it. Still asked, "Did you sleep well?" But Olivia's responses were changing. Short. Flat. Emotionless. Sometimes just a nod. Sometimes nothing at all. One evening, Ethan came home a little earlier than usual. The sky over Strasbourg was gray, clouds hanging low like unfinished thoughts. He opened the door softly. "Olivia," he called. From the living room came a voice without warmth. "I'm here." She was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the screen. Ethan smiled gently. "I brought dinner from that place you liked near the river." Olivia didn't look up. "I already ate." Ethan paused. He clearly remembered she had texted earlier that she was too busy to eat. But he didn't argue. He just placed the food on the table and nodded. "Okay. I'll keep it for you." That small sentence felt heavier than it should have. Later that night, Ethan tried to talk. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just softly. "Olivia, are you upset with me about something?" For a moment, she stayed silent. Then she finally looked at him. "No," she said. A pause. Then she added, "You're not wrong, Ethan. You're just too much sometimes." That word again. Too much. Ethan didn't respond immediately. It felt like the air had changed temperature. He asked quietly, "Is caring too much a problem?" Olivia sighed, tired more than angry. "It becomes a problem when it never stops, when I can't even breathe properly." Ethan stood still. He didn't know how love could be called suffocating. After that night, something changed permanently. Olivia started staying out longer. Work meetings became late nights. Phone calls became avoided. Conversations became necessary only. Ethan tried to reduce his presence. He thought maybe space would fix things. So he stopped asking too many questions. Stopped sending too many messages. Stopped trying too hard. But instead of improving, the distance only grew. Silence became their routine. One rainy evening in Strasbourg, Olivia came home late. Her hair was slightly wet. Her face looked tired. Her expression unreadable. Ethan immediately stood up. "You're late." "I was worried." Olivia took off her coat slowly. "I told you I had work." Ethan nodded. "I know. I just..." Olivia interrupted gently but firmly. "I need space, Ethan." Those words didn't feel like anger. They felt final. Ethan blinked. "I already gave you space." Olivia shook her head slightly. "No, not really. Even when you're quiet, I can feel your expectations." That sentence broke something inside him. He didn't argue, because for the first time, he didn't know what to say anymore. That night, Ethan stood on the small balcony of their apartment in Strasbourg. The city lights reflected on wet streets. People walked with umbrellas. Life continued normally. But inside Ethan, something was collapsing quietly. He whispered to himself, "If love feels like pressure to someone, does that mean I loved wrong?" The rain answered instead of words. Ethan Miller was still trying to hold on. But Olivia Carter was already halfway gone emotionally. Days after that "I need space" conversation, Ethan changed himself. He tried to become smaller in her life. Less questions. Less messages. Less attention. He thought it would help. But instead, it only made things worse in a different way. Now even silence felt like rejection. One evening, Ethan came home after a long day. The sky over Strasbourg was dark blue, winter wind hitting the windows softly. He opened the door and saw Olivia sitting at the dining table. She wasn't eating. She wasn't talking. Just staring at her phone. Ethan tried to sound normal. "Hey. I made pasta. Your favorite." Olivia didn't even look up. "I'm not hungry." Ethan nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll keep it warm." A few seconds passed. No reply. That silence was no longer normal. It was distance in its purest form. Something inside Ethan finally cracked that night. Not loudly. Not dramatically. just quietly. Like glass under pressure. He sat across from her and said softly, "Olivia, can we talk for a minute?" Olivia sighed without looking at him. "If it's about us again, I'm tired, Ethan." That sentence hit him harder than he expected. Still, he continued, "I just want to understand, when did I become a problem for you?" Olivia finally looked up. Not angry. Just exhausted. "You're not a problem." A pause. Then, "But your presence feels like one sometimes." Silence filled the room. Ethan didn't move. He didn't speak. Because there are sentences you can't respond to immediately. That night, the first real argument happened. It didn't start with shouting. It started with pain. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. "So everything I do feels wrong to you?" Olivia stood up. "I never said that," Ethan replied. "But that's how it feels." His voice rose for the first time. Olivia looked at him sharply. "See? This is what I mean. Even now, you're turning everything emotional." Ethan froze. "I'm just trying to save us." Olivia shook her head. "No, Ethan, you're trying to hold something that's already slipping." Those words hung in the air like a final warning. The argument didn't end properly. It just stopped. Like a conversation that ran out of energy instead of resolution. Olivia went to the bedroom. Ethan stayed in the living room. 2 people. 1 house. 0 connection. Later that night, Ethan sat alone on the balcony again. Strasbourg was quiet. Streetlights reflected on wet pavement. Still, he continued. "I just want to understand, when did I become a problem for you?" Olivia finally looked up. Not angry. Just exhausted. "You're not a problem." A pause. Then, "But your presence feels like one sometimes." Silence filled the room. Ethan didn't move. He didn't speak. Because there are sentences you can't respond to immediately. That night, the first real argument happened. It didn't start with shouting. It started with pain. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. "So everything I do feels wrong to you?" Olivia stood up. "I never said that," Ethan replied. "But that's how it feels." His voice rose for the first time. Olivia looked at him sharply. "See? This is what I mean. Even now, you're turning everything emotional." Ethan froze. "I'm just trying to save us." Olivia shook her head. "No, Ethan, you're trying to hold something that's already slipping." Those words hung in the air like a final warning. The argument didn't end properly. It just stopped. Like a conversation that ran out of energy instead of resolution. Olivia went to the bedroom. Ethan stayed in the living room. 2 people. 1 house. 0 connection. Later that night, Ethan sat alone on the balcony again. Strasbourg was quiet. Streetlights reflected on wet pavement. He looked at his hands and whispered, "If loving someone makes them leave, then what is love supposed to be?" For the first time, he didn't feel confused. He felt afraid. Because deep down, he started realizing. This wasn't just distance anymore. It was the beginning of goodbye. Olivia Carter was still physically there. But mentally, she was already building a life without Ethan Miller. Ethan could feel it in small things. The way she stopped asking about his day. The way she stopped smiling at his presence. The way she answered only when necessary. It was as if love had slowly been replaced by routine. And Ethan. He was still trying to remember what they used to be. One morning, Ethan made coffee like always. He placed it on the table and said softly, "Good morning." Olivia didn't look at him. Morning. One word. No warmth. No connection. Ethan sat down slowly. For a moment, he just watched her. Then he asked, "Did you sleep okay?" Olivia sighed. "Ethan, please don't start the day with questions." That sentence hurt him more than shouting ever could. Because it made love feel like inconvenience. That evening, Ethan tried something different. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to be extra caring. He simply sat beside her and said, "I miss you, even when you're right next to me." Olivia froze for a second. Then she slowly put her phone down. "Ethan, this is exactly what I mean." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" She replied calmly, but firmly. "You always turn everything into emotion. Everything becomes intense with you." Ethan's voice softened. "Is it wrong to feel?" Olivia shook her head. "It's not wrong. It's just overwhelming." A pause. Then she added the words that changed everything slowly. "I think I need to live alone for a while." Those words didn't sound like anger. They sounded like preparation. Ethan didn't respond immediately. He just stared at her. "Alone?" he repeated quietly. Olivia nodded. "I need clarity." Ethan whispered. "And what about us?" Olivia looked away. "I don't know anymore." That sentence was worse than, "I want a divorce." Because it meant the ending had already started, internally. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying every moment. Every breakfast he made. Every message he sent. Every flower he brought. He thought, "Did I love her wrong, or did I just love her too much?" Days passed. Olivia became more distant than ever. She started staying out longer. She stopped sharing small details. Her phone became her private world. Ethan no longer asked where she went. Not because he didn't care, but because he was afraid of the answer. One evening, Ethan found Olivia packing a small bag. His heart dropped immediately. "Where are you going?" Olivia didn't look at him. "Just a few days away." Ethan stepped closer. "Is this about space, or about leaving?" Olivia paused. That pause said everything words couldn't. Then she said softly, "I just need to breathe without feeling anything heavy." Ethan stood still. Because he finally understood. To her, even his love felt heavy now. After she left that evening, the apartment in Strasbourg became silent in a new way. Not peaceful. Not calm. Empty. Ethan sat alone at the dining table for a long time. The coffee had gone cold. The light outside had faded. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was in a relationship anymore. He felt like he was waiting for an ending. He whispered into the silence. "If loving you was wrong, I wish I knew where I went wrong." But the room didn't answer. Only the ticking clock did. Olivia Carter still hadn't returned home. The apartment in Strasbourg felt colder than ever. For the first time since their marriage, Ethan Miller was eating dinner alone every night. The chair across from him remained empty. The silence felt louder than any argument they had ever had. At first, Ethan kept telling himself she just needed time. Maybe a week. Maybe 2. Maybe she would come back and everything would slowly heal. But deep inside, he already knew something was changing. Something permanent. One evening, Ethan's phone finally rang. His heart jumped the moment he saw Olivia's name. He answered immediately. "Olivia?" For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she said quietly, "We need to talk." Those 4 words made Ethan's stomach tighten. Because nobody says, "We need to talk," when they have good news. The next afternoon they met at a small cafe near the river. The same place where they had once laughed together during their first months of marriage. Now it felt unfamiliar. Almost like two strangers sitting across from each other. Olivia looked tired. Not angry. Not emotional. Just tired. And somehow that hurt more. Ethan tried to smile. "I'm glad you're okay." Olivia lowered her eyes. "Ethan." He immediately knew. The way she said his name. The way she avoided eye contact. The way her hands trembled slightly. Something terrible was coming. "I don't think this marriage is working anymore." The sentence landed like a stone. Ethan stared at her. For a moment, he couldn't even breathe. "What do you mean?" Olivia swallowed slowly. "I've been unhappy for a long time." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried." Her voice cracked slightly. But every conversation became about saving the relationship instead of understanding why I was hurting. Ethan looked away. The river outside continued flowing. People walked by. Life moved forward. Yet his world had suddenly stopped. "I loved you," he whispered. Olivia's eyes filled with sadness. "I know. I still love you. I know." "Then why does this feel like goodbye?" Olivia couldn't answer. Because sometimes the truth has no comforting explanation. Tears gathered in Ethan's eyes. Not because she hated him. Not because she had betrayed him. But because he was losing someone he never stopped loving. And the cruelest part was knowing that love itself had become part of the problem. Before leaving, Olivia said something Ethan would remember forever. "You were never a bad husband." Ethan looked up. "Then why are we here?" Olivia's voice was barely above a whisper. Because being loved and feeling understood are not always the same thing. She stood up. For a moment, Ethan wanted to stop her. To beg. To cry. To promise he would change. But something inside him was too exhausted. So he simply watched her walk away. And for the first time, the word divorce entered his mind. Not as a possibility, but as a shadow waiting in the distance. A week passed after that meeting by the river. The apartment in Strasbourg felt emptier than ever. Every morning, Ethan Miller still woke up at the same time. For a few seconds after opening his eyes, he would forget everything. Then reality returned. Olivia was gone. And the silence came back with it. One rainy afternoon, Ethan received a message. Just one sentence. "Can we meet tomorrow?" It was from Olivia Carter. His heart immediately started racing. A small part of him hoped she wanted to come home. A small part of him still believed this nightmare could end. The next day they met in a quiet office near the city center. Olivia arrived first. She looked nervous. Ethan sat down across from her. Neither of them spoke for almost a minute. Then Olivia slowly pushed a folder across the table. Ethan looked down. His hands froze. Divorce papers. For several seconds he couldn't even breathe. The words became blurry. His chest felt heavy. "You're serious?" he whispered. Olivia lowered her eyes. Yes. That single word shattered every hope he had been holding on to. Ethan looked at the papers again. The same woman he once imagined growing old with was now asking him to sign documents ending their marriage. The contrast felt unreal. Almost cruel. "What happened to us?" he asked quietly. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know exactly when it happened." She paused. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like your partner." Ethan looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I felt loved, she said softly. But I didn't feel seen. Those words hurt more than accusations. Because they weren't spoken with anger. They were spoken with honesty. And honest pain is difficult to fight against. For the first time, Ethan didn't argue. He didn't try to convince her. He didn't promise to change. He simply sat there staring at the papers. Because deep down, he finally understood something. Sometimes people don't leave because they hate you. Sometimes they leave because they no longer recognize themselves inside the relationship. When the meeting ended, Olivia stood up slowly. Before leaving, she looked at him one last time. You deserved someone who needed love the way you give it. Ethan forced a weak smile. And you deserved someone who understood silence. Both of them nodded. For the first time in months, neither blamed the other. But somehow, that made the goodbye even sadder. As Olivia walked away, Ethan remained seated alone. The unsigned papers lay in front of him. Outside, Strasbourg continued its ordinary afternoon. People laughed. Cars passed. Life moved forward. But Ethan felt like he was watching his future disappear one page at a time.
you.